Thank you.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody, and we'll start the meeting with the karakia. E oha ki runga ki a ranganui, e oha ki raro ki a papatuanuku. Tura kina na mea kina kite pai atia. Ui mai o korowai aroha, e tonga mamato. Ka puta ki te wai ao, ki te ao marama, homie, huie, tai kie. And we will now stand for a waiata. If you want to put your speakers on, then the song, all
Come on,
voices
Andrew.
are welcome.
How very inclusive.
Did you want to start it? Hey? Te aroha, te wakapono, me te rangi mari e tatou tatou e. Me ono wā, ki te atua, ka puta ka ora e tatou tatou e. Me te rangi mari e tatou tatou e. Thank you, everyone, and it was good to have those basses coming through as well. Okay, apologies. We have two apologies. We have Councillor Charlie and Councillor Ross. Could I have a mover?
Oh, another apology. And I left morning tea on the bench at home.
Oh,
Right. Sorry.
oh no. Oh, God. Here, we'll amend the motion for the morning tea. No, we won't, but thank you for the update. A mover and a seconder, please. Kate, thank you. Pete, seconded, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We also have Philippa on live stream for those who are watching the meeting. Minutes. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, minutes. So we have the minutes of the 20th of February 2025. Any amendments required to those or comment? No. Pete, thank you. That was you, wasn't that, Mayor Andrew? Seconded. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Wonderful. So we're on to our first item on the full item on the agenda for 5.1, which is the Regional Museum update. We welcome Bronwyn, the Director, to the presenters area. And I believe you have a guest with you, if you'd like to introduce.
Morena koutou. It's my pleasure to introduce you to John Smart, who is a new member of our Civic House, the tangata tiriti body of the governance of the museum.
Bronwyn, can I just get you to pull the thing closer to you, just for those on the live stream so they can hear you well?
Yes.
Thank you.
And he's supporting me here today to give the report to you. I'd like to begin, first of all, by thanking you very much for the proposal in the annual plan to increase the museum's funding for the next financial year. We are extremely grateful, and we understand how difficult the decisions you have to make are and what a tight fiscal environment is. So we really appreciate the ongoing support that tangibly represents for the museum. I won't go through the whole report. I think I can take it as read, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One is about the continuing high regard that the museum is held in, the continuing upswing in digital access and digital engagement, and that things that we're doing with our collection, such as the outfit of the month, are highly popular, and it's extraordinary really in a town the size of Wanganui that we're attracting 53 visitors to lunchtime talks on a Friday. And it just shows you what engagement the museum is having at the moment. Also, the report talks about lots of partnerships in various ways. So the partnership with the National Library for a second very successful exhibition from their collection. The ongoing partnership that we have with Dalgleish Architects, who help us make award-winning exhibitions, and we've achieved a third Western Architecture Award, which is very pleasing, and again signals, I think, the talent that's employed at the museum, the high standard of our exhibitions and their national recognition. We also have had a lot of acknowledgement of the collections in various ways, as I've outlined. Not only lots of people coming to study and work with the collections, but also things like the UNESCO designation of the Harding collection in collaboration with the Alexander Turnbull Library in Wellington and with our own Alexander Heritage Library. The museum really does have internationally renowned collections, and this is one more recent example of it. I also want to acknowledge our colleagues at the Sargent Gallery and the bump we got from the opening weekend, and how my team have been working hard with the Sargent. Not only have we loaned them objects, but they helped them open on time. And it was really interesting to host a delegation from our sister city to talk about museums and libraries. Partnership is a theme, I think, of the report, and you can see that the museum is highly engaged with La Fiesta, the Women's Network, the summer program, and other kinds of sector relationships. I also really wanted to underline, which I have at previous reports to you, the really important ongoing domestic repatriation work that we undertake. And I've given you an example of how we're working with Uri or descendants in Tairāwhiti Museum at the moment. And that's an ongoing, very significant program of work. And the final comment, really, which has been both a challenge and is going to be an absolute delight, and that's the current exterior refurbishment of the building. Our visitation is plummeting at the moment because it looks like the building is closed, and at the moment the front door is closed for at least 3 weeks. So I checked the figures this week, and we've got about half the visitation at the moment. So we're hoping that once the full glory of the repaint is revealed, that will be an extra attractor and the visitation will go up. I've got a couple of comments on finance and governance, but I think I'll leave it there, and I'm open for you to ask John or myself any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bronwyn. First question is from Councillor Josh.
Thanks, Bronwyn, and welcome, John, to the Chambers. My question is around the education program and the summary you've provided in your report. Can you give any updates around the status of that contract? So that's the first question. And the second question is, if the contract is not awarded again, what does that look like? You've alluded to a rethink of what is offered, but can you share with us how that might look going forward?
So a couple of very good questions, thank you. I have emailed the Ministry of Education and got the standard reply that they will tell us something when they have news. So I'm reading that as not positive news. And in terms of rethinking our offerings, that money pays for the educator position. So we would have to find other money or redeploy staff. And that's the options I think that we're looking at the moment.
What's the annual grant amount that's currently received from that?
71,000.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame. And there's no indication whatsoever around the policy of the ministry around this.
No, and the reason I emailed them was because it was about this time 5 years ago when they sent out the RFPs.
Yeah.
And the indications are, if you're watching what's happening to the public service and the current government's priorities, that will be seen as a nice to have rather than an essential, which is really not a great thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Andrew.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bronwyn, and welcome, John. Question, just you talked about the Sargent Gallery and a little bit of collaboration there. It's definitely with the reopening of the Sargent Gallery and the museum, and even the library actually, you could see it as a cultural precinct. So has there been any talks with the library and particularly with the Sargent Gallery around further collaboration opportunities?
Yes, I've been particularly talking to Andrew at the Sargent ever since he started, and they were just getting to opening, and then we're talking about doing joint exhibitions, joint programming,
Yeah.
as that allows, because, you know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I have talked to him and to my colleagues at the library about making a kind of a trail so that people see and experience, but part of it's at the Sargent, part of it's at the museum, and part of it might be at the library. And I think, you know, now that the Sargent has settled down, I think those conversations can really proceed.
Brilliant. Great answer. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Helen Craig.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Bronwyn, and thanks, John, for taking on the role, and lovely to see you here today. Yesterday, Bronwyn and I, we were in a meeting with UCOL, and I learnt about a bit more about these internships. I think you call them internships. I can't remember, where the students from UCOL are coming to placements. Could you just tell us a bit about that, please?
Yes, so we're always looking for opportunities to both work with students and bring on the next generation, but also help us with our resourcing. And so we've had quite a program now. I think we're on our 4th or 5th placement with UCOL, and it's not just it's from the art and design program, but it's not just artists and designers. We've had someone working with our technician Mike in the workshop. We've had someone from the fashion program working on the padding and the garment preparation for our fashion and textile collection. We have someone working on Instagram Reels, so a media comms person. And we're also looking at having other people working with parts of the collection. And I just see it as a win-win, and I think it's really important. So I really made the point at the meeting with Helen yesterday how much the museum wants to and needs to and should support UCOL, and that we really should be talking about the curriculum at UCOL having much stronger links with both the museum and the gallery, and obviously it has links with Glassworks already, but they are looking to refresh and rethink their program. And so I was offering the museum as a place to not only work with the collections, so artists and designers want to come in and study the collections and be inspired by them, but right across the museum these students can get, you know, work experience.
Thank you, Councillor Kate.
Awesome questions and great discussion, thank you. The 53 people coming to your lunchtime Friday collection, fashion item, it's pretty impressive. What's your thinking around the demographic that's coming, and like expanding or enriching, growing?
Well, gives me the opportunity to talk about the exhibition that's opening on Sunday that I think you've all been invited to, which is a growth and an outcome of the Outfit of the Month talk. So that's reinvigorating our fashion gallery. And so we've built up this great avid fan club for the Friday lunchtime talks, and then that's the extension. And we're being canny by re-showing the first year of the 3 years of Outfit of the Month. And some people won't have seen those, so it'll be like new to them. The demographic is what you would expect, except it's also UCOL students. The fashion students come if they're not at classes. It's not just female, there is a hardcore small group of men who also come. And we've done a lot by way of social media and profiling to get it out there, and I think that's what's been successful. And people are amazed that the museum has such an extraordinary fashion collection.
So when you say the demographic is what you would expect it to be, is that older woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also lunchtime, we tried to make it short so that people could pop in their lunchtime, but it's people who have the time.
Yeah.
So it's usually, therefore, people who aren't working or are students or are retired.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you. John, I just wondered if you wanted an opportunity to say anything. You're not obligated to, but here's your chance.
Well, thank you for that, Helen. So I'm pleased to come on board the museum. It's obviously an interesting time, and we have issues to work through, and it's good to be part of the team that will be working through that and looking at all of the issues that the museum's facing at the moment.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the motion there, which is to receive the report. Can I have a mover? Councillor Helen, Deputy Mayor Helen, seconded by Councillor Kate. Any comments today? Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to thank you, Bronwyn, for your report, and John for joining the the committee. It gets very confusing. The board. I'm going to call it the board.
Joint council.
Joint council. The team. Much appreciated. And oh God, what was I going to say? Oh, now, please come on Sunday. There is that exhibition opening on Sunday at the museum at 3 o'clock, and you've got to come because I'm speaking. So it'd be lovely to have you all there. It is an amazing exhibition, and you'll enjoy it. All right, cheers.
Can I just make one further comment? I should have mentioned I'm here because Rob Carr couldn't be here today, and he asked me to attend in his place. So Rob Carr is the new chair of the Joint Council.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Philippa, you just put your light on. Does that mean you want to speak, or you okay? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you very much. It's a great report, and we have a beautiful museum, and lovely to see you too, John. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Our next item, 5.2, is the Sargent Gallery Redevelopment Project Update. We now welcome Gay Betty. Over to you. Put your push the button. Over to you, Gay.
Morena. So I'll take the report as read, but just a few comments to say that there's ongoing monitoring of the efflorescence and bubbling issue that we have under the dome, that we are working hard to close out our escalation and extension of time claims, noting there is a 12 months allowed in the contract. Certainly no one has wanted it to go on that long, till November, but whilst we had hoped to finalise the report by now, we are actively working towards a resolution in the next few months. It's great to be nominated in 2 categories for the awards. So we've been named as a finalist in the Property Awards in 2 categories, the Civic Arts and Heritage, with the results in June, and shortlisted in 2 categories for the Local Architecture Awards Western Branch, Heritage and Public Architecture, results to be announced here in Whanganui on the 30th of May. And finally, we do have, just in terms of the economic impact assessment, a draft has literally just come through, and so that'll be reported upon at next period. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Josh.
Yeah, thank you. Gay, appreciate the report and congratulations on the awards that the project has been nominated for as well. Just wanting to understand a bit more about the issues under the dome. I'm not quite aware of, what these issues look like in practice and what the risks are. So can you expand on what we could be looking at if it's not resolved?
So essentially it's a paint adhesion issue. Yep. So as you've got moisture, a very dense area under the dome in terms of concrete and a big mass, a lot of moisture to come out. That moisture has to take its time, and as it comes out it is reacting with the paint and the surface treatments.
Okay.
And it looks like a fluffing or efflorescence or a bubbling. And we identified it a number of months before opening, and we have taken the treatment in terms of painting to a certain point. The technical advice is to now just wait it out until the moisture has come through, and then take our final action to do the preparation and final paint. How long that's going to be, we actually don't know, whether it's months or many months.
Okay. So in terms of any cost risk, it's not significant?
So there is a final painting that is to be done by the contractor, and that's why we are pausing to wait to take that action at the best, most efficient, cost-efficient time, so we don't have to keep doing it and then pay for it ourselves.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And Gay, the cost of that repaint is already included in the projections, isn't it?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a supplementary to that?
Councillor Deputy Mayor Helen was next.
Thank you, Gay. The cost of the cafe fit out, could you just explain that a bit? I've had the odd comment from community members that any cafe fit out that would be at a high end of cost scale. So I just wondered if you've got any information about it and talk us through it, or is that not part of anything that you were involved in?
So it was a scope change. So initially the plan had been that we would attract an operator who would do the fit out. So when that didn't eventuate, we took the position to go forward ourselves. I think it is at the modest end. We've certainly, in terms of estimating all of the tables and fit out items, it is in keeping with what the reception area was in terms of the look and effect and feel of it, with a tile selection that I think looks impressive but wasn't at the top end. So we felt that it was fit for purpose.
When you talk about the tile, is that the floors you mean?
The behind the counter
Behind,
type,
so
yeah.
the fit out included all the furniture, the cafe area, the actual serving area and everything that's in that, and any wall finishings
and equipment
everything.
and HVAC
Yeah.
changes, etc.
Okay,
yes.
so it was a basically from total bare concrete to what you see now is what's in that pricing.
Correct.
Okay, no, that's really great. Thanks for that. The archaeology, I see the report will be coming on that. That's great. I don't know if you know in terms of exhibiting the actual findings. Is that something that's planned in the museum in that Sargent, or is that not something that you would have been involved in at all?
Certainly, I know that whilst the build was happening, there was a small exhibition that was held down on Taupo Quay of key items, and it may well be that the gallery might choose to exhibit that, but that would be for the gallery team to resolve.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Councillor Charlotte, then Councillor Rob.
Thank you. So just going back to the dome, just to dig into that a little bit more. If the timing of the concrete drying, I noted in the report that there's a prescribed time frame that defects need to be resolved by.
Yes.
So if the dome does not dry out, if satisfactorily within that time frame, is there a risk of the cost falling outside of that budget built in?
That is something that we are considering, so we may negotiate with the contractor to do it at the most suitable time, because obviously they want the best outcome as well.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I look forward to hearing an update on that in the future.
Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Yeah, just on these escalation of labour rates. Now, why wouldn't a contract be set up in 2019 that allowed for inflation in wage rates? I mean, why is it an extra?
The contract does allow for escalations that can be proven, and extensions of time, of course, are allowed within the contract 3910.
But surely when a tender comes in 2019 and says this is the labour rate, and at the end it's going to be a 3-year build or whatever it is, surely that would be included in the tender at the time.
So one would expect that an escalation provision has been made by the contractor for what the period was in terms of the planned construction time. We have gone well beyond that due to COVID and other reasons. So therefore, beyond the time that they had anticipated the contract would end, so from that time until actual completion, there is a case potentially for an escalation of labour rate, the actual labour rates that took that the action was taken, or the task was undertaken by the contractor.
And is it ascertained who actually caused the extension of time? I mean, does the contractor have a part in that?
So there's two separate things. If it's an extension of time, then we look at cause as to whether or not that was at no fault of the contractor, or if it was through a methodology or some failing of the contractor that's the discussion as to whether or not the escalation is the extension of time. But in terms of an escalation, that's purely on labour rate, purely on rates. So we mitigated a lot of the escalations that happened over the fact that we've gone from 219 to 224 by bringing in materials early. We stored them. We had a lot of paid a lot of attention to that, which mitigated material cost escalation claims. But the labour escalation is still on the table.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Gay. And it is also good to see in the report the funding breakdown. So for those who want to see it, it's on page 18. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kate, seconded by Councillor Pete. Thank you very much. Do we have any comments? We do not. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Gay. See you next meeting. Next item 5.3, which is the Creative Communities Advisor Arts and Culture Strategic Plan Update. Welcome, Anik.
Kia ora koutou. So I'm here to report on the work plan over the last 6 months and also what's coming up in the next quarter in the Creative Community Advisor role. I'll keep it brief but I want to highlight some of the things we've done and what's coming up for us. So as you'll see in the report in the appendix, the work plan goals and what's coming up has been aligned with Council's Arts and Culture Strategic Plan. So you can clearly see how the actions relate to our aspirations and values as a council. One of those, goal 1, is mana whenua participation. So that's really ingrained in how we run our processes through funding and also through quarterly meetings. So we have an iwi Arts rep on all our funding panels for arts, and also I have quarterly meetings with the Tūpoho and Tamaupuko reps. So this will continue, and we also have the Public Art Fund opening at the end of this month, April 28th. So we'll be considering what aspirations there might be in the public art space for mana whenua. Next we have championing arts and culture, that's goal 2. So what we've done most recently, is we've actually had some staff from Creative New Zealand come over to Wanganui. About 4 of them came over to see some of the projects we've funded through Creative Communities Scheme, and also meet some of our groups that are doing a lot of amazing work in the arts. One of them, for instance, was Te Aho Marae and their carving school. So there's lots of interesting work happening here, and I think the staff, central government funders in the arts are really aware of that. So that was a great connection to make. There was also connection across regions with Creative Communities Scheme. So we had a meeting the next day with Creative Communities managers in Taranaki and Manawatu. And that was a great way to share successes, war stories, and how we're managing with our different communities. And that's really great as someone working in the arts, or I guess any sector. Connected creative communities is another goal. So that's talking about networking opportunities that council is facilitating, and also raising awareness about the funds that we have. Of course, Creative Communities being one, and also the Public Art Fund. We also have the Chorus Cabinet Initiative. That's been a real success in the past year, or last year. So the artists, 5 of them, we had about, I can't remember the exact number, but a lot of artists apply this last round. And we had 5 cabinets in total for them to deliver on, and those have all been completed now, so we'll be doing a bit of comms around that soon. And that's been a really valuable tool for new or emerging artists to have a hand at public art. It's structured, it's a, the scope is very straightforward for them. And goal 4, there's a prosperous creative community. So I don't necessarily work in this space, but there are other people within council who do. So I'll leave that there. And then access and engagement for all is the 5th and last goal. We've been working with Artists Open Studios most recently in terms of providing more access for young people in the arts. And that's something I really want to focus on in the next quarter and the next few months, actually, as well. And another point is developing a mural toolkit for artists who just need more support in terms of best practice in delivering artworks and murals in Wanganui. And that's me. Otherwise, I'll take it as read, and if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Anik. A very comprehensive report. Yeah, I've seen some of the artists, sort of lying on the ground and sort of bending over and painting up these cabinets. It's a brilliant initiative. Are these funded, just for clarity for everyone, these are funded by Chorus?
Yeah, that's right. So Chorus fund the artists' fees and materials, and they work with councils across Aotearoa to administer that and promote the opportunity. So we deal with applications and selecting artworks, and they have final say, of course, and they fund it.
It would be good to see the power cabinets painted as well. I guess that's a difficult one to get over the line.
It's certainly been suggested, and I do want to look into that because I guess from a sustainability perspective as well, it's entirely reliant on Chorus, and so it'd be great to diversify and see what other options there are. So yeah, power cabinets, I'll take note.
Because they're quite big, dominant cabinets. Yeah. So, no more questions? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Glenda, seconded by Councillor Josh. Comments? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Helen.
Thanks, Anik. Thanks for the report. Really great. Look, I wanted to make a comment about murals in the public realm. There's been a lot. I'm on the public art steering group of which there's quite a number of other external parties to council. They're artists of very high standard, and there's been a lot of talk amongst us about the need to maintain a really high standard in the murals in the public space. And the public might remember the Wanganui Walls competition that brought in all these amazing, fantastic murals. And we haven't been able to really hold anything like that again because of funding constraints, and we had COVID and what have you. But that was an opportunity to bring in some really high standard public art work into the community. And look, we've got some fantastic artists here, but it costs money to produce art like that. It's not something that's cheap. And we have a lot of enthusiasm now from members of the public and businesses who would love to get some murals up there, and we are seeing a lot of that. But of course, funding constraints mean that they are not necessarily of that same high standard, because artists can't just go and put that artwork up for nothing. So we're looking, this is where Anik raised this sort of guidance to artists and for the public. What we don't want is a whole lot of very cheap, out of necessity, artwork spread everywhere, because what that'll do is it actually will ruin the overall effect. What we want is to maintain a really high standard. That's not to say that there isn't room for just some fun art around the place, so this is not about discouraging that. So there's a bit of work to do around how we enable that toolkit. It's also about giving opportunities to other artists who can't afford to sort of give their time away to do murals, and therefore miss out of that opportunity to create murals. So we do have a public art fund, which artists could, the public could apply to help supplement the cost of doing an artwork and ensuring it's a really high standard. So yeah, just wanted to get that message out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mayor Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Anik. Look, I just want to say this is great. I really like the way that you've, you're picking up on the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan, and you've got some outcomes and measures against it, and lots of green in there as well, which is good. So, given that arts and culture and design is part of our identity in Wanganui, I think it's great to see all of this happening. So, well done.
Brilliant. Councillor Kate.
Oh, very briefly, fantastic, thank you. I mean, that you're spearheading and facilitating all of this work, it, just adds a depth and a richness to our community, and so thank you so much for the great work that you're doing, Anik.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. We now move to 5.4, the housing strategy. Jeanette, we invite you to present. Supported by Lauren. Just push the button. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having me here today to present on this housing update report for you. I'll take the report as read, but I'd just briefly like to discuss some highlights identified throughout the report. We've been working with IT and our policy planning team on the development of a live housing dashboard. We've successfully trialled our first stage, and we're looking to develop this information in more detail as we progress into our second stage. The idea of these dashboards is to bring together a one-stop dashboard of Wanganui housing across the entire housing continuum. And we intend to workshop this progress with you later on this year, so we're looking very excited about that. Through our housing forums with Kaina Ora and Tupō Housing Investments, we continue to navigate the Kaina Ora reset plan announced by central government earlier this year. The reset plan will have an impact on the delivery of social housing within Wanganui, with Kaina Ora no longer committed to building the previously forecasted new homes here. However, Kaina Ora remains committed to communicating all of these changes with the community via their platforms as the changes continually progress. The Wanganui Housing Reference Group continues to be a collaborative forum, combining our council housing team with community NGOs and government agencies. This group remains committed to advocating and addressing the need for more housing and housing supports within our region. And you'll see in the report that we've had a couple of pretty significant highlights that have come through that forum as well that we're quite proud of. With that being said, I'm happy to take any questions on the report. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeanette. It's a very small report, but it does have a lot of really good nuggets in it. When is there any likelihood of hearing from about the 10 homes in Pureri Street? Is that going to, that'll be when?
Yeah, so we meet every 6 weeks with Kaina Ora, and Tupō is part of that process as well. So that does still have to go through their housing delivery system. So we are hoping to have an idea within the next two hui that we held in that particular forum to know if they are going ahead. The likelihood at this stage is probably less than successful for Wanganui, but they still have to run through their whole your housing delivery process first.
Yeah, which would be an inconsistent outcome with comments they're making in the House. And the other one is, I'm really looking forward to the detailed housing report. It's going to be really, really valuable. What is the timeline for you being able to bring that to this committee? Next meeting or the one after?
I would most likely say the one after, just because of the kind of detail that would be that is involved in all of that. And there's also so many uncertainties that we've still got to kind of navigate to put together that larger piece of the puzzle. So I would say most likely the one after.
Thanks for that. It's just really keen, but we want to make sure we get it right.
Absolutely, and it's really crucial in this climate, especially when we're struggling for housing.
Yeah. Councillor Josh.
Yeah, thank you. My question is also around the Kainga Ora housing reset. Seems like there are a lot of unknowns and possibly a lack of clarity around the direction. So my question's on exactly that. Do we know what Kainga Ora's commitment is to building houses in Wanganui?
Currently at this stage, no. There's no further developments that we're aware of. I don't see that the Pururi Street development itself will go ahead successfully. They're still keeping it on the table because we haven't had that definite no. But at this stage, up to 2027, which is what the reset plan is set to, there will be no new developments in that time.
And no indication as to what post 2027 looks like?
Currently, no. No,
Okay.
yeah, so it is unfortunately a bit of a waiting game. They've got a large process that they are having to work through, and unfortunately the ultimate decisions don't necessarily sit with them, so
Totally.
they will be waiting on central government guidance on what 2027 and into the future kind of looks like.
Thank you.
Councillor Glenda.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. The live dashboard sounds really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I guess a lot of this information will come out of council, but will you be collaborating, bringing in data from the other local agencies as well for this?
Yeah, so that's the real key messaging that we want to bring in with these dashboards, because everyone has their own individual idea of what actual data looks like for Wanganui. So we're really pulling in on a lot of the platforms that we already use across multiple departments in council, to making sure that the information that goes into this is quite accurate and quite significant to just our particular region. So we're not only using the housing stats that we have an obligation to report on with our policy planning team, but also bringing in an open data that's really kind of worked through with people who work in economists and all those kind of things, places, especially with real reliable sources. So if we look at places like Infometrics, for instance, they work across multiple data platforms to really bring in true figures that relate to our specific region. Because currently, if we look at even the social housing stats that we can get from MHUD for one, Wanganui's combined with a much larger region which includes Taranaki and Manawatu, whereas the housing stats that we really want to focus on are specifically Wanganui, because that's where we want to kind of put our mahi into.
Can I have a supplementary question?
Certainly.
Thank you. This is really interesting. So have we got buy-in from the other local agencies to be providing that information so we can create a one-stop shop? Because sometimes people like to protect their own backyard, right, to justify what they're doing, but is there a collective buy-in, for us to do that?
Absolutely, and that's probably what's taken such a large amount of time, is one, having to even get permissions to be able to display that information and then see it broken down into those different regions. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that we are working on.
Great.
Yeah.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Jeanette. This is a really important piece of work that you're doing, and we're very, very grateful. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kate, seconded from this side of the room. Councillor Michael. Comment, Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thanks for the report and the good work that you're doing, Jeanette and Lauren. I just want to make a couple of comments. Firstly, it's lovely to hear the optimism from Jeanette that we're going to get good data. That said, the cynic in me tells me it is very difficult to get good data that's granular and reliable enough to actually tell us the story. So I look forward to the progress on that, Jeanette. The second thing that I just wanted to make a comment on, we had a housing reference group yesterday morning, and one of the things that I tried to understand better in my mind is that I'm seeing quite a few houses up for rent, you know, the signs out the front, and hearing from other centres that there is more housing stock available. And I wanted to get the feel from the group, the people that are actually working at the coalface, as to what does it look like out there? Are we starting to see a bit of easing in terms of the housing crisis? And that is absolutely not the case. Yes, there are houses. I think the statistic was that there was 88 houses up for rental in Wanganui per estate agents' websites, which had uplifted a little bit on what it was, because of course that sort of data is very much a tuning thing, you know. But the experience of organisations working with people to get them into housing is that it is very critical and expected to get even worse as we move towards winter. So I just wanted to clarify that, because it's something that's just been rattling around in my brain about how's things going? Are we actually seeing an improvement? And the answer is no, we are not seeing an improvement in the availability of stock in town. As you know, we've been going around the senior housing sites, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to Lauren, Jeanette and the team in terms of how well that is working and the positive response we're getting from people in terms of clarifying what the consultation process is about. And a particular big shout out to Jeanette, and she'll know why, for her work yesterday with one of the complexes that we had to delay for because of bad weather, and we're rescheduling next week. So yeah, great job. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
Councillor Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make a brief comment on the Kāinga Ora housing reset. And I realise that this direction of travel under the current government has been in place for a bit of time now. However, it is probably the first opportunity we've had to comment on it around this table. And really just to say that in light of the comments that Councillor Kate has given around the housing crisis not easing, that it is not good enough that Kāinga Ora is divesting or pulling out of investment in housing in Wanganui. 192 new homes would have gone a long way to ease the pressures that we're facing across the housing continuum in this space. And I think about some of the work that we as a council are doing, whether it be the new housing entity, which of course we're consulting on at the moment, all the work that we've had to do responding to the homeless situation over the last couple of years. And that is a direct and tangible example of the ratepayer having to step in because central government is abdicating their responsibilities to provide housing for this community. And it's not good enough. And we do really need to highlight this issue, because it is here on paper in our meeting that central government is not coming to the party on this issue in the way that they should be. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. And just continuing on that theme, we've heard that there's a significant, well, not, there's a small uplift in the number of houses for rent in Wanganui, and that maybe could be misconstrued to think that there's a lot more houses available, but it's who they're available to. If you've got a large family, if you've got a couple of dogs, which maybe you consider to be your family, if you've got a bit of a background that's been a bit difficult in the past and you've pulled yourself through, these aren't the people that get these houses. And they struggle, they really struggle. And then we've got, Kāinga Ora, who's sort of, in a sense, mandated to provide homes for these good people, and they're being constrained by central government policy. So there's an inconsistency in their intention and action. So I'm not sure what we can do about that, but if we can make it pretty clear, we can make it pretty clear. You've already spoken.
Yeah, no, I moved it, they. Right of reply. Yeah, sorry.
Right of reply, Councillor
Yeah.
Kate.
No, look, really good, Jenny, and totally agree with what everybody's saying. I just wanted to do an add-on to what you're saying, Josh. My analysis of what central government policy is in this space is to hands off and leave it up to the communities. And wouldn't that be great? Isn't that an opportunity for communities to step in here and have, you know, funding of course is an issue, but wouldn't that be great if communities who have already stepped up, you know, and where there's examples in the report of, I think, the Anglican community who are building houses, wouldn't that be great if the community even stepped up even more and got involved in this space? So it may be an opportunity, that's all I'm saying. But thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair.
If you could indulge me too to complete that sentence, where there's an inconsistency also in moving it towards the community and councils, and yet telling councils that councils should not be involved in these things. So again, there's further inconsistencies in what they're doing, and while those inconsistencies exist, there are a lot of people who suffer, and a lot of children who suffer, and that's absolutely not acceptable. So thank you very much for all of your comments. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Sorry, I turned it off. My apologies. 5.5, Parks and Open Spaces. We invite Tania Hinari to the, and supported by Lance Kennedy.
Kia ora everyone. I'm just here to introduce the paper today, and then I'll hand over to Tania to get into a bit more of the detail. But the report provides an operational update on the Parks and Open Spaces activity. It's presented for your information. You'll note the team continues to deliver across its core functions. One of the current focuses that Tania will discuss with you, which I think is a good news thing, is a focus on getting those winter sports fields ready to go. And I wanted to push this point just in terms of this is not something that just accidentally happens. You turn up and your sports field's ready to go. The council, with our contractors, starts nice and early to get those fields in good condition for our community and our children to be able to get on those sports grounds and have fun over the winter period. And I also just wanted to quickly comment. You'll note that there is a comment in there around resourcing challenges, which have contributed to some slower response times to the customers. We are actively managing them and through prioritising the jobs as they come in. So if it's important, it will still get priority if it's critical. But there is a need to prioritise work while we are somewhat under-resourced, perhaps. So with that, I'll hand over to Tania Hinari, who will walk you through the highlights, provide any further information, and I'll remain to answer any questions.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing our report today. We're tracking well against our budget, and the key points for this period that I'll just pull out from the report, as Lance said, the work on the sports grounds are well underway across the football fields, the rugby fields, so that's going really well, and they do a lot of underseeding, and the prep work sort of takes a number of weeks over the autumn period, so we're looking really good in that aspect. The Avery, we're still waiting. We've been working with the Friends of the Avery Trust on the sale and purchase and lease agreements, and we're waiting on the trust to seek their independent legal advice for us to be able to close that process out. So we're waiting to hear back from them. The Virginia Lake Cafe, that has proven to be a successful result in terms of our investigation to find a new operator, so we've been able to sign that up, and that's looking like they will open early May, just doing a little bit of remedial work on the building, so it's looking really good. So we'll be able to announce the operator over the next week. The successful applicant asked us to hold until he finalised his paperwork, so we've had that approval, so we're going to release that this week. The key activities for the next period will be preparing for our 17A reviews, so that will be underway in the next few months across all of our service contracts across our Parks Department. We have engaged with a corporate workplace design consultant to look at our future needs with a strong focus on security in the reception area, so that has been one of our priorities to pull that forward. And another good story as of today, and as a result of our organisational strategy, we go live today with our new asset management system for all of our above ground assets, so that's really exciting. And that will provide the whole life cycle management across all of our council assets. And to support that, we've just announced a recruited position into an asset analyst role to be able to support that process. Some of the issues that we'll be focusing on over the next few weeks, that has been sort of a bit of a challenge over the last few months, has been some theft at the Basin Botanical Gardens with some of our precious plants in the conservatories and in the winter gardens. So we've been looking at different strategies to try and prevent that. We're using social media to just raise awareness and also install some cameras so we can see if we can prevent further theft, which is a real shame. It's been a lot of time and effort and pleasure the community get out of those facilities. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Next question, and maybe a last question, I'm not sure, but any comments you want to make about the necessity for the revamp in reception and the security issues? I've just seen a lot of traffic online about it, and some of it is, I'd have to call it ignorant. So, is there anything that you're able to say?
Well, I can't comment about the online stuff because I don't do online.
But about the situation.
I don't have any online presence. No, I mean, you know, I think there's no secret that these front customer roles across, you know, not just councils but across different industries are going through a pretty bad time at the moment, and so in really recent times that's ramped up here as well. There's been some quite threatening behaviour coming through far too regularly, and so it's unacceptable. We're not accepting it. You know, we recently had the doors locked. We had to have a security guard to unlock before you could walk in the doors. We've paused that at the moment, but we'll turn that back on if we have to. And so, yeah, sitting in the background is this review of the security of that counter area, and you know, my expectation is you'll see a marked difference in the layout, and it'll involve barriers and the public not just being able to walk through and around into the back of the counters anymore. It won't be going back to the days of old, but it'll look better than the days of old, but it'll have a similar result in terms of it'll be a blocked area now. And with some doors in the background as well to provide safe locations for people to back out of when they need to. So shouldn't have to do this, and it's really disappointing that we do. But the message is going out to the public. Look, 99% of people are fine, right? It's just that 1 to 2% that come in that cause those problems, but the other ones that keep our people awake at night, keep me awake at night, and potentially cause the most risk. So we'll do whatever it takes.
Thank you, Lance. I fully support all those comments. Questions from Mayor Andrew?
Thanks for the report. I'm going to the sports ground update. I'm just wondering, are there any standards for sports grounds facilities, particularly the surfaces? We've had a bit of a discussion about this in the past. The reason I say that I've been to the netball courts not that long ago, and they look great. They've been done up but then we've got cricket and football and other facilities. Quite a number of sporting facilities with turf. So my question is, turf management standards. Is there such a thing?
Yes, there is, but I haven't come today with those standards, so I can come back to you with what they might be.
I think that'd be great because, yeah, I'll comment on it later. But thank you.
Councillor Pete.
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, the opening of the sports grounds for the winter, and I was out consulting during the week, and a comment came that the toilets, that during the week the toilets are closed at Wembley Park, and the car parking is thing. Is that correct? Because he said there was about 200 odd kids that come there and practice during the week, but they have nowhere to toilet.
I don't know what the schedule is for the toilets, I'm afraid. I know we have our leases include, for the licences to include operating Wembley Park in particular, have some arrangements between with opening toilets in some of the facilities, but in terms of the frequency, I don't have that on the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Could that problem be looked into, though?
Certainly.
Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you. Can you just tell us what this asset analyst position will do? Because this is the Parks report, Parks and Open Spaces. Can you just tell us the relevance of that to this and what that role will do?
So in terms of the assets, it's across all assets. So hard assets, buildings, furniture, park furniture, parks as an asset itself. So the asset analyst role will be responsible for checking the data that we are required to capture, the maintenance reports, the defects, the timing of defect repairs. So we have a full picture of the investment that we make across all of our assets. So it will be largely an analyst role to check the QA on the work that we do, which will form into the life cycle management decisions that will be made on our assets that we have. It will feed into, the information will feed into a tacked-on system called Predictor, which will be used for our strategic asset management decisions around this table.
So in the past, we haven't had this position. So have officers just had to make assessments of their own bat? Is that, yeah,
So this is it's a software system that is an asset management system. So we haven't had an asset management system at this council before.
Yeah,
So
I mean the role.
The role. So no,
the person.
So
yeah.
the role will be managing the software and the QA in the program itself.
Oh, okay. So they're not going out physically to look at the sites.
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
so,
And is that going to be a full-time position?
yes, it is.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Lance, you talked about under-resourcing leading to perhaps some of the work not being able to be actioned as quickly as you want. So is that our staff under-resourced? I thought we contracted out most of the actual physical work.
Most of the physical work, yes, but no, there's an element of our staff as well that we currently recognise are under-resourced, and so we're looking to bring that back up to close to where it should be at the moment. So it just results in those calls that come in through, our CRM system. Ideally, we would hit the targets of our responses to all the calls, but we're needing to be a bit more, we're needing to prioritise those probably more stringently than recent times, just due to the fact that we're a bit light at the moment. So, but we do have the go-ahead to bring the team back up, at least one position, one parks officer role. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, there's always contractors, but contract management and what have you is actually probably underestimated how much work is involved in that. So, yeah.
Okay. My last question is, as you know, I've sent you some emails about Pukunamu, Queen's Park, and some issues around there, and you've responded you are looking with staff to see if, looking at budgets to see if there's some extra budget that some of that immediate stuff can be remediated. At what point would you be flagging an issue like for some issues like that and bring it back to here asking for some extra budget, whatever. And if you've got issues around other parts of the district that you are concerned about, that we might need to be pulling some extra budget in from somewhere.
I think what we're looking at with Pukinamu is probably within the Chief Executive's delegation. So I think we need to start there first. And as part of that, we also need to understand what the problem is and what the cost is to resolve it. Because if it's within his delegation and we can find budget, then we can just go ahead because it is quite operational. The challenge is with that location, nothing is simple. So everything on the Sargent Gallery side of the road, for example, has already had the archaeological assessments done through that process, and now it's all backfill. The things on the other side of the road, so near the Peace Fountain, for example, are different. So if we want to dig a hole and put a bollard in, or a fence post, a chain link fence, we need to get the archaeologist up to do, believe it or not, to do an assessment before we can do any of that work. So similarly, if we want to block the area for the Peace Fountain for vehicles with concrete blocks, it's just wide enough that it's going to be prison-like almost. It'll look terrible because we can block just where the cars are currently going, but there's access to the sides of that either as well. So we'd need to put a lot more concrete blocks in. So, so the answer though, in terms of what are we doing about it, is we're looking at what we can do within existing budgets and existing delegations. So, and if it needs more, Helen, then we will have to come back through to this table. It's unfortunate, and again, it's a indictment on some of these rat bags that are driving their cars up on there. I'm going to go off on a tangent a little bit, but two general managers, myself and one other, have done 2 separate visits up there this week. There were cars parked on the mud. At the same time when I was there were 6 free car parks outside the Alex and the Old Sergeant entrance. And when the other manager was up there were 9. 9 free car parks, 6 cars parked on the mud outside the new Sergeant Gallery. So, this is what we're kind of dealing with.
Yeah, it's becoming a common occurrence.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully they were ticketed. Next, Councillor Glenda.
Thank you, Tania. Regarding the aviary, is there a timeline, or is it like open season? Because it will be coming up to almost a year's anniversary when we made that decision. So just
that's a discussion I'll need to have with David, the Chief Executive, on that. We haven't got a current timeline. We've sort of been expecting this to be all well and truly completed by now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. No more questions. Ask for a mover.
Can I have sorry. I do have my hand up.
Okay. Sorry, missed that. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the report. Really great to see. Quite comprehensive. It's a big area, as you can see from the budget. Just a couple of questions, I think. Just on the Cook's Garden track replacement, being a significant project and cost, but really important. Could you just highlight remind us, we may have had some feedback in particular from Whanganui Athletics Club and any events they've had. And can you remind us how often, again, is it a 5 or 10 yearly type of replacement cycle for this asset?
I believe it's 10. I'll check that, Philippa.
And feedback on the new track surface, and obviously meeting the requirements needed for certain levels of the meets, and including, I think it's World Heritage kind of mile status.
We haven't had any negative feedback. The feedback we've had, it looks great. It was done quickly. That sort of feedback we've had. I haven't had anything formal. We haven't done any sort of circle back in any surveys, but it has been positive thus far.
Sure, and I get that. Just, I mean, I've heard nothing negative either. I'm not insinuating that, but like it gets does it kind of get a quality assurance afterwards, audited, whatever? Obviously, it's a contract, quite significant. Like, just briefly, is that's all part of the contract procurement process and reporting to management?
I'll go back and look at the procurement documents. I wasn't personally involved in that, but I'll certainly have a look to see what that has covered.
Thank you. Just apologies, I just want to check. Yeah, that's probably my only question. I would like to speak in the comments just as well. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Philippa. We now call for a mover. Councillor Charlotte, seconded by Councillor Pate.
Excuse me.
Comment. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Helen.
Thank you. Look, I do appreciate the report, and it's a really, parks are a really, and open spaces it's a really big area of responsibility for council, and probably what our public almost see more than anything else. The budget's just over 8 million. It's a 2-page report that we get every year. It's quite a gap between each report. And I'm just not seeing in the report anything that's really giving us a lot of information apart from very once over lightly. And that worries me a little bit when I look at, as an example, Pukenami Queen's Park. And if you haven't been up there, I would just ask you, councillors, to go up and have a look. It's not looking great. And this is around what I consider the maintenance budget. And if I hadn't raised it to staff, I don't know if we would be aware of it. And I think that's something that should be in this report, where we have issues that aren't, places that aren't looking great. So at the moment, and it's been sitting like this for months and months and months and months and months, but there is a dead big palm tree that's been dead for quite a long time. It's never going to grow back. There's a light pole that's been pushed over and hasn't been rewrited. There's this huge and growing area of mud that cars are now constantly parking on. They're going across this broken curb that probably happened when they were doing the rebuild, and they're parking there, and it's becoming a meeting place. And I walk up there this morning again, and somebody's gone up the hill and done wheelies again, I've been up there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've seen a car come up with guys deciding to do a big hoons up there because they can, and it's becoming common. And garden beds around the Alexander Library haven't been redone. And this is our premier park where we're attracting lots and lots of visitors to, and it's looking really shabby. And I just feel that if we don't have the budget, if we don't have the resourcing, as a councillor, I want to know about that. And the fact that I've walked there practically every day, I really notice it. And so I'm just asking staff to think about, I just don't want to hear the good news. I want to hear what we're not managing to do. And then can we have some, especially at that park, can we have some active ideas on what we do about it? I see that there is going to be, in the CRMs, I'm not getting any feel for what the issues public are raising. I do notice it in the report that it says that at the next end of Q4 there'll be an update that should have KPIs and non-financial performance measures reported on. I think we need to get a better feel of what the CRMs are bringing in. That's where people ring up or they email in and notify that there are issues. It would be really good to have those summarised so that we can get a feel for what people are saying about our very public face. Look, I know, so I'll just end it with, I think our parks team and that whole area, I think you're doing an amazing job. It's a huge job, it's difficult, and I think it's obviously getting harder and our budgets are tighter, but I want to hear the bad news as well as the good news so that we can, as governors, decide if we need to put more budget in or more effort in or we need to help you in some way. So that's enough for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mayor Andrew.
Yeah, look, thank you. There is, I mean, we've got I don't know how many acres of parks we have, but it's certainly a massive area to cover. So appreciate all the effort that the team put into that. The bit that I want to talk about is going back to the sports facilities. We have a number of sports facilities. It's great to see the Cook's Gardens now receive, I think, we've got status where we can have international events there, whatever that's called. There's a term for that. And the netball courts, as I said, have been redone. In regard to other events, to use a sporting analogy, it ain't where the puck is, it's where the puck's going to be. So not thinking about now, I'm thinking about sort of next year and beyond, to ensure that we have the ability to attract high calibre events across Wanganui, across all sporting areas, as I think something that we should aspire to. And it would be, and I think there's also some capability being built in to council for turf management, which is great. But I guess my comment is I'd be keen to ensure that we have the ability for all of our sporting facilities to be able to attract high calibre events. So for example, we had the Sri Lankan cricket team play here a number of years ago. Central Districts also played cricket here some time ago, but they can't do it now because of the turf. And I think it goes to a number of other events as well. It's not a criticism. It's more, I think Wanganui has a rich sporting heritage, and I think it'd be great to see our sporting facilities, like Cook's Gardens attract high calibre sporting events. So hopefully that's a comment. I don't know quite what the response is, but that's just a comment for now. But we can happy to pick it up offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Helen for raising your points. You actually took my questions that I had during question time, and I think articulated it very well. Ultimately, we've consistently heard from our community how important our parks and open spaces are to us. And ultimately, if our budgets aren't meeting the levels required to mitigate those constraints that we're seeing, we do need to know about it, and we need to know the best way forward for that. So, yeah, thank you for the report, and yeah, well said, Helen. Thanks.
Oh, Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. Look, thank you for the report. I want to, there's a lot of, it's a huge area. There is a lot of great work going on. I just want to give a bit of mahi also to Sport Wanganui, who I think are, for a very small budget actually, and probably next to nothing previously, but looking at some kind of a budget, I believe, going forward to support work in the sport, recreation, activity area, support us in so many ways around our parks and open space strategy, around our sport and recreation facility strategy, with the Sports Hall of Fame, with Hiraki, the Hiraki regional plan, and just lots of interactions. I was at the Our Safety Plan meeting yesterday, and I just want to also go on a little bit just in support of Councillor Helen and Charlotte's comments, I guess, in particular. And like the comment around the winter sports fields getting ready to go, that is great to see. And these things, you don't just turn up for a game of rugby and the field is ready. Absolutely. I want to just put your headspace, without saying too much, into something like our awa and our river, and the activities that happen there, and the actual work that's happening there from a whole lot of sporting and other partners, including Coast Guard, etc. That is an ever-changing and a dangerous environment. And possibly I am conflicted, but But, what I can tell you is, there's a very challenging situation going on for the water sports community, in particular the rowing community, around the water sport, the Whangarei Riverbank project at the moment. And while all I will say there is we've got volunteers, organisations doing some great work, and you might have seen in the rowing space, the number of people we have, and the right through to participation and right through to high performance. It's been through to Māori Cup and New Zealand Rowing Champ, etc. is building, but it's a lot of work. And to hold events, and we've been working to hold events, and a lot of volunteer time going into the upgrade of some of the Reserve Management Act and the continuing activity that we looking with partners looking after that bank. I have been quite appalled how a particular member of our rowing community has been treated. He has had a breach and had a fine, and it's not from our council, but it is from Horizons, and it's just poor. It's about communication.
Are we moving out of scope, Philippa?
No, I'm not going to say any more there, but I just wanted to give you an example of we need more resource. We need to work. Some of these things just can't lay on the table for 6 months because the state of these facilities, the riverbank changes, and we're finding it hard to hold. We want to hold a North Island interprovincial regatta for all the associations in the North Island. These things needs to happen there. But I'll also just really briefly, there's just, Mayor Andrew talked about the great work. We've got some amazing achievements happening. We've just had our first, at the age of 15, I think, the first Poppy Priddle made the New Zealand White Sox, the elite women's softball team. It's a once in a lifetime, I think they use the word, it's a once in a generation talent. So, so many of our sports field, there's so much happening there on a weekly basis, largely from volunteers with support of our council team. But we do need, I believe, more resource and more money into it. And it's something I'm pleased that the spotlight's going on this area. Thank you.
Slightly over time there, Philippa, but thank you very much.
Can I speak?
Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Some good discussion, and I hear the frustration. At the same time, I just want to remind us, and this has come up through your discussion, but I'm going to say it again. I want to remind us that one of the top risks highlighted in this report is that completing the work program following the 2024 restructure. Now, there is always that tension between delivering a great service and managing our costs and keeping rate increases as low as we possibly can. So I just, I'll make that comment. I'll thank Tanya and Lance for their report and for your good work. But, we need to remember that, cutting costs comes at a cost, and that risk is there. Completing the work program following the 2024 is alive and well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kate, and I'll just do a sort of a mop-up of all of those comments. Yes, we do need more information in the report, and we can discuss what that might look like offline. However, I think we can all see, because there's been too many comments from around the room, we can all see from our own time out in the community that a number of our parks and areas are falling behind. So there is that connection, and that's by no means an implication against our staff and our contractors. It's simply a resourcing issue. Resourcing requires funding, and when we keep cutting and cutting and cutting, there's a consequence. So we're seeing that now, I think, within our community, that we have cut back. I know that for some of us, we agree to see a reduction in the flower bed budget. And then, my gosh, the consequence of that has been completely unacceptable. So sometimes I think when we're making these funding decisions, we need a little bit more in-depth conversation about what it's going to look like and what the ongoing effect is. So I think parks has been cut as far as far to the bone as it can go, and now we're seeing the consequences out there in our community of what that means, because things cost and things deteriorate. So something for us to think about and for our excuse me, our community to think about as we go forward through this annual plan process. So I will now put, and thank you very much for the report and the work. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. I'm now going to annoy the water guys immensely who've been waiting for some considerable time. We're going to take a 5-minute break, guys. Apologies, but we've got an hour and a half. turn your thing around. You want? Are we on air? Yeah. We're about to get underway. Welcome back, everybody. Next item, 5.6, Three Waters. Welcome, Kutso, and also Lance. Over to you, Lance, to do a bit of an opening.
Kia ora again, everyone. So this report provides an operational activity update across the Three Water services presented for your information. It outlines the current performance highlights from key projects, including some commentary on particular areas of community interest. I do want to highlight a positive, and I know we need to have a balanced report, and I think it is balanced, but the Nixon Street wastewater renewal, which has been going on for some time, we are near the completion of stage 2 of that, 98% near, so I'm happy to report that to you. And with that, I'll now hand over to Kritso and Tony, who will speak to the details of the paper.
Thank you very much. Kutso.
Testing, yeah. Tēnā koutou, thank you for the opportunity to talk to the report. So just on a few further highlights on that, so following on from the stage 2, there's now the last stage 3 of the Nixon Street works, which is really a minor, what we call a rider sewer, to be constructed back at the bottom end of Nixon Street, and that's to pick up the local properties and redirect it to the new works that's now been installed through stage 1 and 2. So it's always been part of the program. The tender is probably going to go out towards the end of this financial year. We're just working on the details now. Moving on to water, a number of just standard water mains renewals in the network that's being completed. So these are planned works. So all up our planned program going reasonably well. On stormwater, not much to report. In spite of recent rains, the network is holding up reasonably well. The rains haven't been of any return period that would cause issues. So we're just keeping up with standard routine operations and maintenance with stormwater. And then something else to note is just there's been the standard item included on what we're busy with at the wastewater treatment plant to ensure we stay on top of any odour sources. And then lastly, the water compliance framework. We are making continuous improvement on the compliance, and there's been an improvement from this year to the first year, and just reminding us that we're reporting against new compliance rules now. And that leads to the UV program, which is in the long-term plan. So it's a 3-year program. Just wanting to remind people again, it's a 3-year program with a couple of different plants that's going to be rolled out, and we're just in the planning and design phase now. And that brings me to the end of this update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're very fortunate to have the entire team here, as always. Do we have any questions? Oh, you want to, sorry. You want to update?
Yeah, sorry, I'll just add just quickly. So just referring to the CST tank concrete refurbishment at the wastewater treatment plant. So on page 2, and then on page 3 there's some photos. So just to clarify around that job we're doing, so as you're aware, that tank was designed to be covered to control odour. So one of the issues with having that is that we can't see the state of the tank. So the tank itself is 7 metres deep, and it remains about 5.5 to 6 metres full of effluent all the time. But last year we took the covers off to do some maintenance on the diffusers actually in the bottom of the tank, but we were alarmed to see the deterioration of the concrete in that top metre that's exposed to the air. So obviously below the tide line it's fine, it's always the gas can't get to the concrete, but in the top there we found some quite bad damage. So put in the budget quickly to do some refurbishment on that concrete. And the photos on page 3, so particularly down the bottom 2 photos there are like the worst areas. And over the length of the tank, there's certain zones where the concrete is basically as it was when it was poured, and then there's other areas where the influent comes in where it's really bad like that. So yeah, obviously this tank is designed to have quite a long lifetime, and we're only 8 years in, and we've got some damage, but so it can be rehabilitated. We've got some people there now doing half the tank this year, the other half next year hopefully, and they basically water blast all of the loose material off, and they spray a new coat of concrete on, and then they paint like an epoxy on, which is actually the hydrogen sulfide off of the wastewater can't eat away at the concrete. So I just thought I'd clarify what's going on there, because yeah, it's quite a new asset, and we're doing some maintenance work on it already. So.
Thank you very much, Tony. It's much appreciated. Dave, anything you want to add with regards to your report?
I think just as Kritso mentioned, end of the annual 2024 annual report to the TA. Obviously, we've implemented some big changes in terms of how we report, and even just to get to the end of the report, making some major changes has improved some of the conditions that we're reporting on now. The other thing is too, we're working with, as part of our distribution rules, we're working with contractors. We've implemented a hygiene code of practice, so there's a standard within TA that we have to implement through contractors, and that's all to do with water quality. So, I think we've moved to sort of improve our water quality standards, and we know where the issues are. And then obviously working through this year, we'll start looking at some of those improvements as well.
Thank you very much. Questions, Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Kritso, I just wanted to get an update on flooding issues. There's four that I've been monitoring. One is Mannington Road, another is Tūroa Road, another is Napier Road, and another is Putiki Drive. Can you give some brief updates of what's happened since you last reported it to Council?
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Rob. And then I might, in the next update, also give more specifics in writing around that, but I will quickly cover that off. The Napier Road matter, we're busy with standard maintenance planning. There's a window in the whitebait season that we have to observe that we cannot have machinery in the channel, but the work is being scheduled at present for May for the maintenance of the watercourse, the council-owned watercourse around Napier Road, so that'll happen in May. There are other activities by other landowners which is out of our scope that is being discussed specifically downstream. And then of course there's a wider conversation around with Wakakotahi and Horizons around the whole catchment, which is a different thing yet again. That's where that's at. Putiki, there's a multi-agency collaboration underway at the moment, really co-led by the local community and the hapu of Putiki. Very much focused on what are the big issues for long-term projected climate change. So updating our information basis on what does it mean for sea level, long-term sea level rise as predicted by NIWA, and we're talking about an 800 millimeter projected sea level rise by the end of the century. That actually really changes what the risk, the perceived risk is around Putiki, and Horizons has commissioned WSP to do more up-to-date modelling and flood modelling of the river with these new assumptions that's come as a result of the NIWA climate change projections. So that work is ongoing at the moment, and we are awaiting the results later this year, which will then inform how we can open up the conversations around adaptation. Tūroa Road, there's a collaboration between us and Horizons on the options. There's actually been an options report produced. We are really waiting for Horizons to come to the table so that we can do a debrief to the community. I've been asking some questions on when we can get that set up, but yeah, the community has actually been waiting for a while there, so we really need to speed up our efforts there, to be fair. But once again, it's a collaboration between ourselves and Horizons for that catchment. And then you had the fourth one.
Putiki, oh no,
Mannington Road.
Mannington Road.
Mannington Road. We've actually just had a very amicable discussion with Richard Emmett last week. There's a few improvements that's been put in place, and we're making good progress on addressing matters to satisfaction of the landowner there, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. And just on, so using Napier Road as an example, can you tell us where the responsibility lies in terms of the council, the private owner, and Horizons for clearing that Awarua stream?
There are so the responsibility, in short, lies with the landowner. And so council only owns a portion of the land, and then each landowner subsequently, and often the streams historically are actually the boundary as well. So often it's two landowners, like each have to work together to maintain the stream to an acceptable level under the Land Drainage Act and the Local Government Act of 1973. So it is the landowner's responsibilities in the first instance to ensure that a sufficient drainage channel is being maintained. Now, in terms of the compliance of the landowners and whether they're keeping up with their maintenance, that's a compliance matter that is managed between Whanganui District Council, but also Horizons, depending on whether they're far out in the rural zone or if they're urban. So it is actually a real... everyone really has to work together really well for it all to work. So it's not as simple as just coming to one entity is responsible for it. It's not like that at all.
Okay. I do have another couple of questions in wastewater and stormwater.
We'll get them out of the way now.
Okay. Just there's the connection of Mohuanau to town with the wastewater is going on at the moment, I think. Can you give us an overview of what's happening there? I thought that all the wastewater was going to be pumped to the town through our system, but apparently that's not the case. What is happening there?
So at the moment we've done a preliminary design. So they're now doing a detailed design. So there's no construction happening yet. That won't be till next year. So in terms of what's going to happen, obviously we've got a little system out there that is quite aged, so that's going to be disposed of, and we're going to pump it into town, likely to connect into the city reticulation at the top end of Springvale Road there.
Oh, yeah.
And then run through the retic as the rest of the waste does.
So most are on septic tanks at Mohuanau, are they not? So how does...
Yeah, so the system out there is quite unique. So all of the effluent in Mohuanau goes through septic tanks, but we take the liquor out of the septic tanks and it flows through a gravity system like the city down to a treatment facility. So basically it goes through septic tanks to remove the solids, because we have no solids treatment out there. And so we just empty those septic tanks annually or 6 monthly. And then so we're dealing with a different effluent to what we are in town, I guess, because we remove the solids in town and then we treat what's left at the wastewater treatment plant. But out at Mohuanau, because it's quite small, there's septic tanks dotted all around the village, and we maintain those, so we're not dealing with quite a harsh effluent when it gets to the treatment facility.
And just one for Dave, if I may. There's a lot of talk around about water softening and water softening plants. And so can you just, Dave, just to clarify the situation, is there anything left of the water softening plant that was installed in at the reservoir? Is there anything salvageable there? Or is that starting from scratch again?
Yeah, so definitely there's no softening plants located at the reservoir now. The existing assets or plant was, we did a joint sort of collaboration with Ngāti Apa with the strawberry farm. So we utilised some of the assets like the filtration system, and we sort of helped with what they bought it off council, the assets, because they were just sitting there doing nothing, and they utilise them now currently for their strawberry farm. And we helped in terms of implementation and trying to set it up for them. But yeah, so those assets have been sold on and being used for the same purpose as what we used them for. The only asset there is the shed itself, and it's been utilised for storage for critical assets like bore pumps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next one, Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you. Very comprehensive report. There's two items here. One is called pavement maintenance and the other road sealing. I presume...
Excuse me, we're in the wrong report there.
Oh.
We're in water.
Oh, sorry. Don't know
It's
how
okay.
Sorry. My apologies.
Would you like me to
I
move
will.
on?
Yes. I did
Thank
wonder.
you. Thank you. I would have liked to have heard the responses from these gentlemen around the paving. However, we won't put them through it. Next is Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Be interesting to see you gentlemen doing paving and roading. How do you feel about that? Look, thank you very much, Tony, for talking us through the issues with the repairing the CST tanks, I think is what they're called. I wanted to ask about odour out there, and these tables are really good in terms of what's being planned, what's the possibilities, and what's the likelihood. So I've really got two questions around odour. Firstly, there was a big spike in February in terms of, so you might like to talk to us about why that was. And the second question is around, we can see the stepping down through each of the options and what the likelihood is. I'm just wondering about the dryer and the 300k, where the target date for completion is if funding was brought forward the end of 2025. So my question around that is the funding going to be brought forward, or what's the current thinking about that? So the odour in February and the dryer works of 300k estimated, what are we thinking? Thank you very much.
Yes. So the dryer side of it. So David actually called out to the plant a couple of weeks ago, and we had a talk about that specific project, and he was keen to try and bring that forward and do it this coming financial year. But I'm not, and he was very keen to get that in the budget for next year, but I'm not sure whether that's happened or not. I mean, if it's done, if he has made that change, which he was going to try and do, then we'll do it this coming financial year. Failing that, the plan as it stands now in the LTP was the budget was available for the 25-26 year. So we'd make plans to be ready to go in July 26, sorry, I forgot what year we are for a minute. Yeah, so as soon as that next financial year ticks over, we could get into whatever the solution's going to be. So that's why I've still got that 2026 date in there.
Right.
Because as the budget stands now, that's where we are. But if it gets forward, obviously the project will. What was the first one you said?
Yep.
Sorry.
So cool.
The
and then the
complaints.
number of odour
Yep.
reports in February.
Yeah. So when I get calls, people often think we've done something. We're doing something different, where something's broken down or whatever, and that often isn't the case. But in February, we started getting complaints. So up until then, the bulk of the complaints have been from one area down by the airport there. But in February, we started getting some complaints from the gun club, which is just over the fence, but in a northerly direction. So that's why there's a bit of a spike, because I've been over there, they've got my number now. So they text me every time they go there and they smell something. So Yeah, that's why, because there's an additional complainant, I guess.
Can I just add to that too? Just briefly, you know, historically there was a perception from one of the sort of most affected that they weren't necessarily getting heard by council, and so we've kind of worked out part of that was our lack of communication to them. We've improved that, and in amongst that, I wanted to reiterate with them, you know, where before you felt it wasn't worth ringing because you weren't getting heard, now they have some assurance they're getting heard. Please ring when you are affected. So there's you know, potentially some room for those calls to keep increasing, because we'd rather hear than them not get hold of us and think we're going to do nothing. So
Okay.
I'm not concerned by an increase from that either.
So it's not so much that our remediation works are making it worse, it's that actually people are reporting more often.
Yep.
And that's what we should take from it.
Yep.
So
So good thing.
Just to note, the remediation works, we warned them that, like, we're doing this, we don't know what kind of effect it will have, but it's actually made no difference at all. Like, the guys are actually in the tank on a barge, and the barge is obviously floating on the effluent, and they keep saying to us they're surprised there's no odour at all. So those works aren't affecting the odour discharge at all.
Right.
I'm quite confident.
But we're confident that the dryer, that 300k work to the dryer, has a high probability that it will make a difference.
The dryer is the biggest producer of odour out there. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you very much. I just want to dig a little bit into the deterioration of the concrete at the plant. Do we know what's causing that? Like, is it something in the water, or was it a manufacturing issue?
So a common byproduct of waste water is hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide and concrete don't mix well, and so it's the hydrogen sulfide that's eating away it's not the effluent itself, because you can tell where the tank sits full of water, the concrete is perfect once you wash it a bit. But above that tide line, there's issues there. So, in hindsight, and I don't know exactly, but there should have been additives added to the concrete, because you can do that in order to prevent that kind of corrosion. It looks as though potentially that wasn't done, which may have been a shortfall given that it's a wastewater treatment plant. But yeah, we can still like build the concrete back up and then coat it with something that hydrogen sulfide can't eat away at like it can regular concrete.
Yeah, great, thanks. That answers my question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Kate. Seconded by Councillor Michael. Thank you very much. Do we have any comments? Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thought I'd give a quick update. It is in line with this paper, but it's conversations that we had in the Chair's briefing that I thought was good for councillors and the public to know, be aware of. So we raised with Madam Chair around the number of complaints on social media around water, and we checked the CRM, and there's almost nothing. So if you have issues with water, please raise it to council. If you're reposting on Facebook the same picture you posted 2 years ago for likes, then you're making us look at the CRM and the water quality. So though that sounds fun, I took it very seriously when so many people sent me messages of their water, and you need to raise that to the council so we can record it in CRM so that we can actually prove that there are certain areas, certain times that are actually having significant differences. We did talk about the water softening, and thank you, Councillor Rob, for raising that. As you're all aware, I put a solution to you a few weeks ago and on Facebook, so I look forward to discussing that over the next year regarding supplementary water softeners. Thank you.
Thank you. And a final comment from me, just adding on to that, to our community. When something happens, you need to communicate with council either through the apps, I forget what they're called, not Snapsy and Soul, there's the other one, Atena, and phoning in, and do it every day so that the numbers can be logged, so that we can be absolutely certain that there's an issue in a certain place. But by putting it on Facebook, you're not doing anybody any good because it doesn't get into the system. Thank you very much. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Great report, and we really appreciate it. Next up, 5.7, roading. We now invite Mark and Brendan. Ah, over there. Over to you.
Kia ora again. So, just introducing the roads and footpaths activity operational update with a focus on project delivery across the approved work program. You'll see there is a high level of detail in this report, but I think that just reflects the current sort of state of the work program at this time of the year, and for this quarter it is the busy period for the roading particularly. The report also provides some commentary on the forward planning for the next financial year in terms of work being done there. But I'll hand over to Mark Ellingham, our Manager for Transport, and Brendan Walker, the Alliance Manager, who will take you through the main points.
Through yourself, Chair Jenny. I'd like to bring a couple of points to your attention. Within the finances that you have a look at in the report, you'll see that some areas are tracking very high. Part of the reasons behind this is that, for example, in our unsealed roading, we've crushed all the rock for the 3-year period, all within 1 year. We're changing the way in which we are doing some of the work programming over the 3-year period for our transport department, so that instead of just trying to concentrate on the budgets that are in 1 year and only carrying out that, looking at it as a combined 3-year program and delivering more efficiencies from that. So when we go into year 2 and year 3, we've already got all the rock crushed, and in that the majority of what we are using now is actually crushed recycled concrete. That is a major benefit in the fact that we're not actually using more quarried material and recycling material that's coming locally from the district. So doing all that in one single crush obviously makes it a lot more efficient for us, but then obviously raises the cost for this year. And to counter that, what we're doing is we're bringing NZTA funds from year 2 into year 1. And obviously when we get to year 2, we spend less because we've already got that done. And that approach is actually going across quite a few of our work categories. Within our footpaths, we've taken on the responsibility to try and, I committed to this, get rid of all our category 4 and category 5 trip hazards by the end of next year. So by bringing funds from year 2 into this year, it allows us to carry that program out across the whole district sort of concurrently, and that actually brings us a lot more savings in the way in which we're actually trying to work in the logistics of carrying out those jobs. So there are quite a few changes in how we're delivering our program, going from singular 1 year to actually looking at it as a 3-year bucket of money, and how we bring money forward from year 1 into year 2, or push from year 1 back into year 2 to balance it as it goes. To assist us in this, there's been a lot of work that has been done in the back of house in regards to performance frameworks and our reporting systems, a Power BI system which will basically track our budgets sort of in real time as we're going, and that allows us to be able to see as we move dollars from one to the other how that is working and keep a better eye on it. Obviously, as we work more dynamically, we need the processes to be able to have better real-time information as we're making those decisions. And in closing, one of the other parts which I neglected to put into this report, just purely on time frame, is at the very end of the report under other, it just shows that some of the other works that we're actually doing outside of transport. We're now taking on work in the parks by looking after all the sealed surfaces, by combining the line marking and the maintenance of the sealed bitumen surfaces in our parks area. That gives us some more efficiencies. Also the understreet, under veranda lighting, taking on that as part of all our normal street lighting and traffic lighting will actually give us a lot more efficiencies in how we deal with that, just dealing as one single set of lighting. And the area in regards to some of the rubbish removal and that for fly tipping, I'm assisting in that area where we've got vehicles and trucks and getting that out reasonably quickly. It allows us to respond reasonably quickly to it, as well as obviously supplies a service to our waste area. And so that's good in the way in which transport has been able to assist in other departments. And finally, I'd like to put a bit of a thank you out to our Coast Guard. We had some graffiti that we had to remove from underneath the bridge. Looking at the cost and the OH&S required to have people in a boat working underneath the bridge and doing it, I think we were looking at around about a $3,000 spend just to remove one piece of graffiti. The Coast Guard come along and has helped us out and done that for us, which has been a really good benefit. So where we can tie into anybody else to help us, that's really good, but also where we can actually help out some of our other departments, that's been a focus. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's all outstanding stuff, especially on the economies. It's really, really welcoming. Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You may not know the answer to this question. Sorry for dragging you straight away with this. Power BI, are you going to be exposing those data points to public IP addresses, i.e. can the public see when work's going to be done in their local area?
Currently, no, but it is something I would really love to do.
I would love to do that with you. Thank you.
There are systems like Archimedes, which ties into RAM, which actually has real time, and as a grader actually is grading, you can see when it's actually grading your road and when it's programmed to be there and the like. There are some of those systems out there. It would be a pleasure for me to do it because I'm a hardcore gamer from the old days, and actually the visual representation of what we're actually doing and showing the public is something I've always really wanted to do. The difficulty is I think we really need to sort of crawl before we walk, before we run, and we're currently, I think, just getting to our feet.
Yep. So I'm here to help at any point on that.
Excellent.
Thank you. Councillor Glenda.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I guess a common theme of all these reports today has been we'd love more resources if we can. So thank you. We can see, that it's challenging for you to prioritise. So my question is, you've written down here, as previously reported, unsealed road maintenance remains an ongoing issue with current maintenance budgets fully allocated. Funds from other activities will be used. So have you got other activities in mind, or is it just going to be, at the time, what doesn't seem to be the most prioritised?
Well, in all these things, there is a risk. If you have a look at the 140 minor events, we've currently spent 46,000 out of that for a budget of about 342. We all know we're not going to have any events between now and the end of the year. So currently, some of those areas are what we're actually using to cover the unsealed road area. And we're also currently doing some studies on some of the areas from a meeting that we had out at the Mangamahu Hall recently, where we sat with the residents out there. And we've selected several sections from the residents that have come to us to do some trials and see how we may be able to do anything better. And once we've got the results back for that over the next year or so, hopefully that will actually give us some areas or some ideas in the way in which we can possibly do some of our maintenance in some areas slightly differently.
Okay, so what you're saying is it'll be like as is, where is, like at the time, where haven't we spent some money that we can use? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Helen.
Thank you. Finally, on to the right people. I'm so excited. I wanted to get in there early. It's all good. Look, thanks, Mark. And Brendan, nice to see you. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing. It's pretty obvious that you guys are flat out at the moment. The road resealing. I note that you are achieving a 4% network coverage per annum at the moment, and ideally it should be 7%. And then I guess you've mentioned a 9% you'll have to do in the future. I guess that's the catch-up. And you're going to achieve all of this through better asset management strategies. Or to some extent, I'm really interested in this because I'm very aware that if we don't seal the roads in a timely manner, we're creating more of an issue. So can you just talk about, is it budget constraint, or where you're going with this, or how are you going to keep us updated on this?
That's a really good question, Councillor Craig. I think the difficulty for us is the amount that we can achieve. I do take your point when you mentioned the word all. Efficiencies and what we can get from what we're currently doing are the small percents. And we're trying to accumulate those small percents to give us a decent saving. Within our ceiling budget, one of the things we're trying to look at is how we schedule our work. So within a 3-year program, we do need to do, our ceiling rates need to come up, and bitumen and prices are expensive. I can't see bitumen coming down, especially in the current economic climate we are now offshore. There isn't a lot we can do to gain major percentages. Obviously going from 4 to 7 is a major leap. But by doing things like not sealing the parking bays of a road and only sealing the main carriageway where it's actually driven on, changing some of the treatments to less long life treatments. So instead of trying to do something that'll give you 18 to 20 years, doing the cheaper treatment, which will only get you, say, 12 to 14 years, that gives you a lot more volume. And so there's probably half a dozen different strategies we're trying to employ in that. And we're hoping next year to basically bring it up by 1%, 1.5%, and then obviously beyond that, we'll be looking for greater funding in the next NLTP.
Thank you. I'm sure we would appreciate being kept abreast if you're getting tight on that. On page 50, under roads resealing, the very last point, you say, following poor audit results, a greater emphasis on traffic counts and data collection has led to an increase in count data. Can you explain what do you mean by the poor audit results?
So with NZ Audit, the AOG, when they came through and audited, one of the metrics that we have is around our roughness data and around some of the metrics in the pavement. The calculations that you do for those metrics require good traffic count data. Our traffic count data here for quite a long time has been quite poor. It's quite vital in the proving of our case to people. For example, the Dublin Street Bridge, when we're doing some of the calculations in regards to the affected roads around that, also in development, i.e. the police precinct, having good traffic count data allows us to have far better robust discussions with other parties, as well as make better decisions on the treatments that we're actually using. Because it's I guess, class is a really minor function, it doesn't really add to your roads in any way. It doesn't fix anything. It's something we've probably lacked for quite a few years, but it's something we've now got. How many more counters? 8 more. Yeah. So we've got 8 more counters, plus the traffic lights that we've all put in, all have counters in them, and we're actually trialling a couple of street lights that have a camera on top of it, and the video goes through a video scrubber, which can actually count things like cyclist horses and things like that. And also,
How many horses have we had lately?
actually, weirdly enough, that it does, on one of the intersections, a horse come up. And with that, as part of the trial, it also, when there is no traffic and no one around, it actually can lower the luminums of the lighting, so you get less light pollution and less power bill while no one's actually utilising the network. We're only doing this in one small section as a bit of a freebie trial at the moment, but these are the sorts of things that we can do that gives a better service to the customer, because obviously, you know, with street lightings being dimmed, it's better for those who live around the place. And if nobody's driving there and there's no one there, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, the need to have bright street lighting is somewhat superfluous. So these are all things that we're trialling and trying to do at the moment, only on very micro scales, so it's not costing us to do some of the analysis, but there are ways in which we can, we're at the saving the pennies, and that's what we're trying to do now.
That's great. Be great to hear a bit more about that in another report. And who did the audit, did you say?
It came from our Auditor General audit that we normally have.
Oh, okay. So,
Our LT, would be an annual plan
that's
audit.
fine. That's great. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Josh.
Thanks, Mark. Just a couple of questions from me. Just on the emergency funding, can you remind me how much the co-funding from Wakakotahi for emergency works was reduced by?
The emergency works funding hasn't been reduced. The difficulty with if you're purely talking on the emergency works, the way in which emergency works is you get whatever the extra amount they give you, you get it at your normal FAR rate, for us it's 62%. Once you go over 10% of your work program, for us that's around about 1.5 million, then you get the extended FAR, which is another 20% on top of that. And that's only for the subsequent works beyond that first 10%. There is a difficulty in that if it resets every year, and one of the things we're really pushing at the moment is trying to get all of our emergency works completed by the end of this year, because what doesn't get completed, whatever falls into year 2, will drop back to the normal FAR until once again in that year we accumulate more than that 10% of our program.
Okay. Because, I was under the impression that there'd been a reduction in the FAR rate subsidy that we receive for emergency works, but you're saying that's not correct.
It'll only reduce when you go from one year to the next year, and that's the losing of the extended FAR, I think they call it, which is that added 20% that we get on top.
And that's a change within the last couple of years.
Some of the changes they have done is what qualifies for an event. So previously, it was somewhat easier to justify an event. Post-Cyclone Gabriel, emergency works funding is, I guess, has been drawn very heavily upon. So it is something across the board, whether it be any of our applications to, whether it be for Dublin Street Bridge, whether it be for emergency funding, the data and our applications need to be to a far higher standard than they have been previously.
Okay. Final question was just around you mentioned early in your report about the use of crushed concrete, recycled crushed concrete. Can you remind me what specifically that was for? Is that resealing or?
It's for our unsealed roads, but actually it is a really, really good news story for actually the whole district and what we're actually doing. Brendan, I'll let you, it's your baby.
Thank you. The majority of that use is mainly for remettling. Obviously, it works well for us on some of the hill sections where we get corrugations on that unsealed network. We have used it in other situations where it's been used under as a base course product under either footpaths or in the base of other pavement repairs in the way of conventional digouts as well. So there is multiple uses for it, but where we see probably the most benefit out of that type of material would be in that remettling of those sections in that unsealed network.
Yeah, you probably answered my supplementary then, which was around the limitations in terms of what it can be used for. I mean, I imagine it's not at the appropriate quality level to be used for main routes and that sort of thing.
It's not far off in the sense for the last crush we had done. There is a spec that material can be used for, which puts it in the realms of the likes of a normal roading aggregate. So it can get to that spec if we chose to go down that pathway. There may be a little bit more in the way of preparation of the material to be able to get it there. First of all, the main point for us at the moment, what we're trying to get is quite a clean product. So obviously you understand when you dig out a bit of concrete, there's a little bit of soil and everything else that comes with that, very small percentage. Keeping that product as clean as possible helps us get towards, if we were going to grade it and look for a spec product, it would be a little bit more work in that front space to get right to that point. Yeah.
And what about availability of the recycled concrete? Is there an abundance of it? I mean, what are we looking at there?
So in the past there have been, so just to put it in a little bit of perspective, is this year we crushed about 4,900 cubic metres of that product, and currently sitting in stock there is probably about 4,200, so there's been about 700 cube that's been put on the network so far. The pile that we collect is already growing, so what's happened in the past with the programs we've got based around the walking and cycling space, so footpaths that are being removed and replaced, curb and channels within the drainage renewal space, we're collecting all of that material, so there is quite an amount that come from our own work. Walking and cycling has obviously dropped in the sense of the funding we've received in that space, so there is a lesser amount coming from there. But what we have also put in place is we are taking product from outside roading as such, and from I guess members of the public or other organisations where that material is clean enough. So we are looking to try and supplement that shortfall we're getting ourselves now by other means.
Well, that's a good news story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that comprehensive response, Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you very much. To expand on Josh's question a little bit, is this something that the public, is it well known within our community that there is somewhere that concrete can be taken to for recycling?
We haven't openly advertised it yet because the facility we've got is unmanned, in the sense that we have to be very careful of I guess a bit of fly tipping and every person dumping there without following I guess the requirements we need and how clean the material needs to be. But we've probably, off the top of my head, we've probably had 20 or 30 different people or organisations tip there over the last probably 12 months. Also working with the waste minimisation team within council too, so some of the fly tipping that's happened around town, we've picked that up and collected it in there as well. So probably to answer your question, it hasn't been openly advertised, but it is known that we have taken material, yes.
So if someone was to, if someone did have a significant amount of concrete that they did want to have recycled, what would be the process?
The process at the moment is probably to call us directly within our down offices at Heads Road, and then we would have to make someone available to meet them down there, obviously inspect the material in the first instance to make sure it sort of complies with what we're after, and then organise tipping times to be able to get into that facility, which is locked outside the times we're carting in and out. So probably something that we can put some effort into in improving that process or knowledge and workability around getting material in there.
And just one final supplementary to that, what would be an amount of concrete that would make it worthwhile for that to happen for you?
There probably is an amount, to be honest. If you turned up with a trailer load and it was clean, it's a matter of opening a gate and tipping it in the pile.
Right. And you're happy to turn up to
Yeah, yeah, we would be. Like I say, it probably needs a little bit of work in the sense of how we can make that a little more user friendly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's a material that we can recrush it at a relatively cheaper price when you're comparing it against other materials. But also the matter of literally turning up and tipping it in a pile is very low cost. So
Yeah.
from that
Awesome.
point of view.
Oh, well, I look forward to hearing how that can be made more effective and efficient. And Mark, a question for you. Firstly, it's really great to hear that budgets and work programs are being looked at more holistically to find efficiencies. So well done there. Question, if your budgets were at a satisfactory level to fulfill maintenance requirements, is the human resourcing available within the Alliance to complete everything in the work program on time?
Currently, we can complete a lot more than we are actually we have in funding for. If anything, we're actually trying to find more work and that to keep people more employed. Obviously, with the changes in the way in which we've been dealing with things this year, as you're well aware, there's been a major change from the focus on some of our other peripheral works, like obviously the cycling and some of those works. So within the Alliance, there is the ability to upscale should there be more funding, and we are chasing more funding currently. We'll know reasonably soon the outcome of the applications that we've got in currently for more work or more money for our unsealed network, some of our intersection treatments and traffic lights and the like. Obviously, from an NZTA perspective, once they make that announcement and we have that extra work, we've got the staffing is there to carry it out if we need to.
Supplementary. So, for clarity, fulfilling the work program is somewhat dependent on NZTA coming through with their match funding. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's for other works beyond that we're currently doing now. So from a maintenance perspective, we've got slightly more than our actual application was, and that's just for your basics of road sealing, grading and the like. For traffic services and active transport and the like, that was heavily cut. So where we're struggling at the moment is in areas of street lighting, traffic lights, and those sorts of areas. The funding that we have in at the moment is to put 2 more traffic lights in and the like. If that money comes through, we've got the ability to do that within the Alliance and also other resources as well.
So when you say struggling, you're referring to budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Rob.
Thank you. For quite a few years, there's been a request to council about getting a pedestrian crossing across Great North Road. Those who were here for the long-term plan consultation had quite an impassioned presentation from a couple and their 8-year-old son trying to get across the road, if you recall. So has there been any
Rob, could you just highlight the fact that it was at Virginia Lake, just for context, because Great North Road's quite a long road.
Yeah, that was, yeah. But has there been any further progress in working with Waka Kotahi on getting a pedestrian crossing?
To my knowledge, we haven't done anything in my period of time here requesting that. The first bad part of this conversation. I would say that it would be a fraught and a waste of time to try and do that with NZTA currently. Their main focus for their state highways, that is on traffic times, pedestrian crossings, or anything that basically slows traffic. I believe it would be incredibly difficult to get that through NZTA for funding.
In my experience too, Rob, with them, their safety engineers are not keen at all on pedestrian crossings on state highways.
Well, I know, but there's also a safety problem that you're trying to rectify, and people are trying to get across, especially with the redevelopment of the St John's Hill shopping centre. There'll be quite a traffic demand there. I just want to raise that again today and maybe investigate it further, because there's certainly a real safety issue there.
Yeah, I'm happy to raise this with NZTA and take it through the process. Sometimes it is quite handy to put it through their process, and then they say no, and then we can show at least that we did ask. But I would say that the likelihood of getting anything there would be incredibly low. But it's the process of going through and asking is fine. We can do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pete.
Yeah. Charlotte's comments about recycling concrete, just to flip side the coin there, is there an opportunity to, as another source of income for the council in selling?
From my perspective, I need a lot of it. Brendan?
Probably to mirror Mark's comment is we, as a product, we can use everything that we do crush. Outside of that, I guess around a business case would have to be run to be able to look at that and to see whether there's credibility or in that sense. Yeah, to answer that right now, I probably can't. You can't do that
because we've Kaibosh will delay the out at Waitangi Park for shell rock as a source. But if it's handy in town, then it may be an opportunity. So if you could do a business case, I'd be keen.
Councillor Rob, and last question.
Yeah, just with the recycled concrete, do you remove the steel reinforcing as well?
Yeah, so the crushing plant that actually crushes it has got magnets on it. So we're probably up to our fourth or fifth crush that we've run. There have been varying success rates around taking the steel out of it, but we seem to have got that right now. The last crush we've got, I would say, 98% of steel out of the material that we've walked over the stockpiles with. So yeah, removed by magnet.
Thank you. I will thank you very much, gentlemen, for the report. It's another jolly good one. I will move. Who will second? Councillor Josh. Comments? Deputy Mayor, Councillor
Thank
Helen.
you. I'll try and keep it brief. Look, I think councillors have to keep a really close eye on the resealing percentages that we are achieving. It is false economy not to spend the required amount of money on new seal. The pavement gets to a level where you then, if it gets too thin, you get much more rapid and accelerated deterioration, which costs a lot more in the long run. And I'm just hoping that or would suggest to the roading team that they have a table or like a line graph that they can show over time how big a distant gap we've got between what we're achieving and what we should be achieving to meet those standards. An example of how poorly you can end up is the para, where NZTA were not resealing to the normal requirements, to what it's like almost a scientific formula, and as a result they had very high deterioration. We ended up with the para in such a state. So this is something that councillors, even though there's tight budgets, we need to understand that you've got to do this job. So I'm just asking that the roading team always make it very clear in their reports about where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philippa, did you want to speak?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I wanted to raise in the comment section. First of all, the recycled concrete. The ideal situation would be to have a facility that's available to the public, which is understood, and it's available 24/7 or at least 7 days a week. Downer's Yard is not that. And I would suggest that the ideal place is the Resource Recovery Centre, where you could simply set up a charge for a drop-off, and that would work. And so I would hope there could be some progress in that. What I did want to raise, though, also is that I am concerned that in the community there's a lot of misinformation about the relationship between the Wanganui District Council and Downers. There's a lot of misinformed, ill-informed comment about an uncompetitive nature of that relationship. And I think that there needs to be some sort of media comment about that particular issue or explanation. And even to councillors in this triennium, I don't know that many of the new councillors would understand totally the relationship of the alliance. And I think both new councillors and the public would benefit from a re-explanation of what the alliance is, how it competes for its work with the Wanganui District Council. So I just leave that request with you to look at some one-pager for councillors, maybe about the relationship of the alliance, and some media comment about the relationship with the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very, very much. Look forward to seeing you next time. And last item in the public section is simply the work plan. We did a revamp of this between the last meeting and this one, and it has moved a little bit. I'm happy to move if there are no questions. Councillor Michael would be happy to second. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Before we go into confidential, I just wanted to make a chair's comment. So if you want to leave, that's perfectly fine. But I just wanted to comment on some of the things that have come through this today. We've talked a lot about scarcity of budgets and the impact that that's having on our community. But on the other hand, we're seeing where our community is actually adding to the cost of these budgets. I've got 4 examples just out of today's meeting, and there could be more. Fly tipping, and in particular, the big dumping at Landgar Bluff and the cost it is at the moment to remediate that. We've heard about the plant theft at Rotokawa Virginia Lake, totally unacceptable. We've talked about the parking on the grass at Pokinamu Queen's Park, and in particularly when there are parks available, but at any time, and that is costing there is a great cost at remediating that lawn. And then we've heard about the security requirement needed downstairs because of the escalation in aggressive and unacceptable behaviour towards frontline staff. All of those things are significant impacts on the budget, which increase rates. So within our own community, we need to start self-policing within our communities around behaviours of those that we know that are doing these kinds of things, because they are the ones that are costing. Yet the council receives, if you like, the blame for that, and it's actually not fair on either council or our community. So on that note, I will move on, and we will pass the motion to exclude the public from the next section of the proceedings. I'm not going to read it all out. Mover, thank you, Josh. Seconded by Councillor Peat, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
So, Jenny, I'm going to leave the meeting. Sorry, at the start, I won't come.